Now, Keith, the coronavirus is front and center. What kind of impact do you think it will have on Singapore's tourism numbers going forward?
Well, it's a significant and severe impact on the tourism economy. China accounts for about a fifth of our total international visitor arrivals. So the evaporation of that business will have a huge impact on hotels, restaurants, retail, tourist guides, our inbound travel agents. So it's a significant impact on all
I'm
of
just
us.
wondering, can you quantify that for us? Because in Q3 we had 5 million travelers to the Lion City, 22% of them are Chinese. So if you had to quantify the kind of impact, the kind of hurt, how will it dent the tourism numbers?
Well, it's not just, first of all, the impact isn't just confined to China. Initially, we thought it might be just confined to China, but now there's a larger impact that's rippling out across the region and the world. So more and more non-Chinese travelers are also deferring their visits to Singapore and to the region. Right now, in terms of numbers, we know that in the first few, from when this crisis began till now, we are averaging, on average per day, we're losing about 18 to 20,000 visitors on average. That's about 0.1% of overall international visitor arrivals per day. So now, how long this lasts for, we don't know. But obviously, the longer this lasts, the figure could get even worse.
DBS came up with some estimates. It says that Singapore will lose 1 billion Sing dollars in revenue for every 3 months of the travel ban. Is that pretty much accurate? Is that in line with your own numbers?
I haven't seen those numbers from the DBS yet, but I would say that it is very hard to make any forecast right now. It all depends on how the situation plays out in China and in Singapore as well.
Early days yet, but what are you hearing from players in the industry, the likes of the airlines, Singapore Airlines, Scooter, any anecdotal stories that you can share with us?
Well, the main cry that I'm hearing is help right now from the entire tourism industry. There's lots of anecdotal evidence of business drying up, but that's not surprising given how much China contributes to our visitor arrivals. So looking at hotels, and especially at the inbound travel agents that bring in the groups from China, they are struggling. We recognize the troubles that they're facing. We have over 1,600 tourist guides who guide in Mandarin, and their livelihoods have also evaporated because many of them are freelancers.
Could there be a crisis in the tourism industry? Because from some of the research that we've read, we've seen how flights have contracted by 7 to 80%.
I don't think this is a long-term crisis. It's obviously a very serious situation that we're facing. But when we look back at past crises, whether it was Sars or H1N1 or 9/11, tourism demand always bounces back. The uncertainty is how fast that will bounce back, but people want to travel. People want to see the world. So I'm quite confident that tourism will recover. So the more important question is not so much how we're doing now, but how we're positioning ourselves for that eventual recovery.
How are you positioning yourself, and what assumptions are you making about a recovery? During SARS, we saw a V-shaped recovery. Could it be a V-shape, an L-shape, a U-shaped recovery for the tourism sector?
We are preparing for all eventualities. Of course, I would welcome a very rapid recovery, but we must also be prepared for a longer, slower recovery. And we are prepared for all those scenarios. What's more important now is that, number one, we're building capabilities that position ourselves well for recovery.
What capabilities are you referring to?
So in service delivery, in data sharing, in even at the establishment level, we're asking, for example, whether hotels can use this time now to, because it's quieter for them, to improve their rooms, to bring in new technology, for example, that will help them cope with the increased demand in the future. So
what measures can be implemented by the STB as well as the government to help mitigate the pain that's being felt by the players within the industry?
Well, there are specific measures that we've announced already in terms of cleaning costs. There are many other measures. We hope to increase some of our incentives to make it easier to upgrade skills, for example. Tourist guides. We know that we need more tourist guides in Singapore with languages like Spanish and German and Korean. So we are wondering whether we can now use this opportunity to encourage more tourist guides who may be out of a job now to use this period to gain new language skills, an example of the capabilities that we hope to build in the future.
Even before the onslaught of the coronavirus, tourist spending in Singapore was slowing down. What's your take on it, and how do you hope to overcome those challenges?
Well, overall tourism receipts for 2019 still grew to 27.1 billion in 2019. So overall tourism spending has continued to grow modestly. On a per person basis, it has continued to drop a little bit. Our efforts in terms of growing tourism receipts has focused on making sure that we deliver good service so people are happy to spend more. We make it easier and more painless to spend, and we make the product higher value as well, whether that product could be a good, like a work of art, or an experience. So make it easier to spend, make it more pleasant to spend, and make it more painless to spend.
I know it's early days and it's challenging times. Is there any clarity what it looks in terms of tourism receipts for 2020 and the tourism arrivals?
Well, we have forecasted that this year we might see a decline of 25 to 30% of incoming international visitor arrivals. We haven't yet worked out how that translates into our tourism receipts for the year, but I would expect something along the same magnitude in terms of percentage as well. I have the caveat that would depend a lot on how long or how short this period lasts and how fast the recovery will be.
Keith, just one final question. Is there anything countries around the region can do to work through this difficult period together?
Cooperate. Right now, we are seeing a collective lack of interest in Southeast Asia. We've always felt here that Southeast Asia is a great tourism destination for visitors from Europe, from the US, from Australia, from Northeast Asia. It's very attractive. But unfortunately, there's a collective dampening of interest in Southeast Asia as a result of this crisis. And I think we can work much better together in Southeast Asia to grow that international demand into Southeast Asia.